It's December, and that means it's time to look back on the highlights of the year. The problem is, you can only beat so many games, watch so many movies, or read so many books at a time, and usually, not all of these pieces of media came out in the same year you consumed them in. So let's talk about my favorite things of the year. Not in a definitive best list of everything that came out in 2023 kind of way, when there's tons of stuff I haven't been able to touch that I really do want to. Instead, these are my top 5 favorite things I read, watched, or whatever in 2023.
Number 5.
In a year with one of my favorite franchises releasing so many things, it would be impossible for at least one of them to not be on this list. It actually speaks to everything else here that this entire list isn't just Sonic, and Sonic is at the bottom of it. But exactly which Sonic thing made it? Sonic Prime released its second part. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is so good it became one of Steam's top downloaded games of all time. Sonic Origins got its DLC, which added Amy to the playable roster of the Genesis games, and Sonic Superstars was announced and released and was pretty dang good. My pick, however, is Sonic Frontiers The Final Frontier DLC. Not much is actually added story-wise, but it feels amazing to play as the full roster of Team Sonic in a 3D environment like this again. Tails and Knuckles are very obviously based on their adventure playstyles, and they work great in the open zone. The same with Amy, but her playstyle has been completely revamped to focus more on her fortune cards. While I'm not against this becoming a more highlighted part of her character, I do find it odd how her hammer is sidelined in one of the most combat-focused Sonic games yet. But hey, the whole game's about change. Why not embrace it? It does kinda suck that cyberspace remains Sonic only, but I am a big fan of how challenging these remix stages are, and how the bonus objectives make you slow down for them, making you observe the environment more. It all feels pretty adventure-esque, and I hope they continue in this direction for future games. And that's really my big takeaway with the Final Frontier update. It has its issues. Bosses are brutal, the final trial is just unfair in hard mode, the towers are grueling, but Sonic Team made this in 1 year, with 2 other updates, and Sonic Superstars are on their back as well. To me, this is a snapshot of the future, and I'm stoked.
Number 4.
You know what I like? When reality is wrong. That's part of the reason I like Dreamworld so much. Dreams are inherently unstable and chaotic. The entire structure of the world could change in a second. But these are dream worlds. If these utter rewritings of reality were to happen in reality, then they need to be secured, contained, protected. This entry is not about the SCP Foundation. Control is a third-person shooter where you play as Jessie Faden, a woman who accidentally becomes the director of the Federal Bureau of Control while searching for her missing brother, who they took into custody after an incident during their childhood. This happens to happen during an invasion from an otherworldly presence known as the Hiss, which is hijacking people and causing the already unstable building the game takes place in to get even worse. The game is almost Metroidvania-like. You start out as just an ordinary woman, but slowly gain objects of power, which grant you new abilities, psychokinesis, levitation, and so on. You even return to several locations multiple times with new objectives, egging you on to explore the oldest house and find all of its extras. The game makes liberal use of real-world footage, mostly shown with this researcher looking into the Hiss. Due to the oldest house's disruption of most modern technology, he's left his research behind as these little VCR recordings you can find throughout the game. It's a nod to analog horror, of course, though not trying to be it. And I feel like that's kind of the heart of the game. It uses these horror aesthetics in completely genuine ways, while not trying to copy them. This game is made with love for weird, quasi-horror stuff like House of Leaves or Welcome to Night Vale. It doesn't use expanding hallways and unending rooms to scare you, it uses them as a backdrop for you kicking ass to a metal song. These recordings document how we got into this situation, but they're at times goofy and ridiculous. I am not a third-person shooter fan, but this is easily my favorite game I've played this year, and I cannot wait for the sequel.
Number 3.
My favorite story is Persona 4. I love the way it deals with social anxieties and trauma by going into those suffering's head and making them confront themselves. There is no magical fix-it button, just a manifestation that makes accepting themselves do or die. And it's so interesting seeing how these mental worlds are shaped by the fear and their views of the real world. It really shouldn't come as any surprise then that I like Omori. You've probably heard about it all by now, so I'll keep this short. Omori is a game about trauma and depression. More accurately, the harm of repressing it all. It's a story about a boy constructing a world where he is safe and free from the dread he feels living in reality. How hiding away from it all has shattered not only his psyche, but also his old friend group. And it's also about healing from that. Trying to help others heal from it too. At least in the good end route, which is the only one I've personally played. While I don't think Headspace is all too interesting a setting, mashing up dreams and nostalgia while not really advancing the more interesting plot in reality, it is fascinating when you poke around it. You begin to find these cracks where the repressed is breaking through, find these strange characters who know the true nature of the world, come across warped realities. There is a ton of symbolism here you can have a field day with. One of my favorite completely unexplained bits is this page of the sketchbook in whitespace. When I first started, I knew this game was a psychological horror, and so was at max theorizing level. And hey, look, there's this bra with the rest of these clothes, but Omori isn't a girl, right? So I started theorizing that Marie was some feminine figment of Sunny's imagination, a sign he may be trans? This isn't right, and Marie is obviously real and her own character, but then what is the bra there for? And in one of the bad end routes, there's a quest where the reward is a potion that changes Omori into a girl. I have no idea what it means at this point, and I honestly love it for that.
Number 2.
So if it wasn't obvious by the video where I just talk about stuff I like, I'm autistic. I mask it well, but it is something that affects my life, both good and bad. I've learned to love myself, even if the world at large does not. The Spirit Bears Its Teeth is a book about autism, and being transgender, and being assigned female at birth. Overall, it's a story about control and how the powerful will trample over anyone, destroy lives, dehumanize anyone beneath them to get what they want. They will make themselves the heroes to justify themselves, force their beliefs into religion and society, make you someone who needs to be fixed, just for existing. And it is a story about taking these powerful people and tearing out their throats with your teeth. The Spirit Bears Its Teeth is a horror story focusing on Silas, a trans boy who has been institutionalized in a home to fix women who don't fit into society's standards, essentially treating them as breeding stock for a society that values the color of their eyes. It is a home that beats, sexually assaults, and all around tortures them into being perfect, undefying wives. Ones that will not love the wrong person, value themselves, fidget, or in the case of this world's supernatural forces, break the veil into the afterlife and see the spirits of the broken. Like with his debut novel, Hell Followed With Us, Andrew Joseph White gets it and unleashes the rage of a society seeing your existence as wrong and constantly being a target because of it onto the page, blood dripping out of every word. This is not just a novel, but an author who understands people cannot be controlled in this way, and anger is a perfectly valid emotion, that the world can be changed and you can survive, if not unscarred. Death conquers all. Do you want to go into the void without making your voice heard? Having lost yourself and soul to a world just for approval, abandoning and betraying those like yourself for it? Because there are people out there, hiding under the floorboards, trapped in their graves, crying and clawing out that you are not alone, and who are still suffering because you are suffering. The Spirit Bears Its Teeth is raw, angry, and it's like looking in a mirror. It is one of the best books I have ever read. Before we get to my number one, I want to talk about a few things that didn't make this list and some things I'm excited for in 2024. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is a love letter to both mystery visual novels and the Sonic franchise in general. It's such a fun, almost casual adventure with some of the best writing the Sonic cast has ever had. You know, I can't believe I'm actually enjoying Fortnite. Like I said, I'm not into third-person shooters, but I do love playing some games with friends, and Fortnite is a great one. It does help that since its main audience is middle schoolers, it is fairly easy to get a #1 victory royale, yeah Fortnite are about to get down, and feel good as a team. Suzumi comes from the director of Your Name and Weathering With You, the former being tied with The Truman Show for my favorite movie. Despite it being far more action-oriented than its predecessors, it still holds that slice-of-life vibe for most of its runtime and will hit you right in the heart. I don't watch many movies, but I am so happy I saw this one in theaters. And while we don't know the future for certain, we do know some things are coming up. In January, I'm going to see the Sonic Symphony live. Sonic is such an important series to me, and even non-fans love the music that comes from it. The recording posted as part of the 30th anniversary was amazing, and seeing it live may be the highlight of the year for me. Soon after that, we're getting Persona 3 Reload. I first experienced Persona 3 via the portable re-release a few years back, which I don't think is the best way to experience P3 for the first time. But Reload looks to be that good first-time experience I missed out on, and it looks gorgeous. Last year, one of my favorite games I played was this challenging platformer called Frog Gun, and a standalone sequel called Frog Gun Encore is in the works. I loved the first game so much, and I am so happy they're doing more. And another indie game, Penny's Big Breakaway from the team behind Sonic Mania, is looking great and currently scheduled for 2024 as well. Also, Lonely Wolf Treat should be finished next year. Go play Lonely Wolf Treat. Finally, and this isn't even something that's been confirmed, but I'm excited for a new Puyo Puyo game next year. The series has an obsession with the number 24, and I don't think they're gonna let 2024 slip by without something to commemorate it. If you haven't played Puyo before and are a Sonic fan, please give the Blue Guys Sister series a shot.
#1.
You ever just start watching something on a whim because you've vaguely heard decent things about it, and then end up binging it and buying every volume of the manga it's based on in the span of a week? That was me with The Demon Girl Next Door. A series about a girl who learns she comes from a dark clan striking out into the world to defeat a magical girl, grow a few inches, and get some money. It's just too bad that our hero Yuko is a bit of an idiot who doesn't have an actually evil bone in her body. She's afraid of a neighbor's dog, she's in debt to her rival because of train fare, her weapons of choice are a fork and a rubber band cannon, she's comically weak and paired up with a muscle maniac, and she is a surprisingly compelling character. That's what's really appealing about the series to me. It all starts so simply, just some general slice-of-life stuff with fantasy elements. But that's all deceptive to how deep it really goes. Yuko is weak because she spent most of her life in the hospital. She's obsessed with food because her family is poor and she could rarely get a decent meal. Despite the comedic tone of the series, it does have a serious story to tell and rich characters to tell it with. But I don't want to mislead you and say it's the deepest story in the world. It is still one of those half a step away from being Yuri comedies 90% of the time, with Yuko playing against Momo, her arch-nemesis slash best friend, who loves toying with Yuko, but grows willing to do anything to protect her after being met with Yuko's true kindness. And kindness is the heart of the series. It's in the narrator telling Yuko not to give up at the end of every chapter. It's in Yuko not taking advantage of people when they're down. It's in the community that sprouts up around her, her refusal to solve problems with violence, how the first thing she summons to protect the town against the first real villain of the series is a staff of healing. This is my favorite thing of this year. It's fun, it's heartfelt, and it will hit you when you least expect it to. It's about how we can raise each other up through simple kindness. It's about how we can heal each other. It's about how anyone can be the one to do this. It's about a demon girl next door. Thank you all for watching. Here's to a new year and new discoveries.